Hi, I'm Ali Miller and I work for Shared Lives Plus, the membership organisation for shared lives and home share across the UK. For the last year, I've been working in Scotland alongside The Promise to look at how we can make shared lives available to parents with learning disabilities. Shared Lives is a model of care where someone with a support need moves into the home of an approved Shared Lives carer, and together they share family life and community life. It's similar to foster care in that it's about sharing a home together and sharing family life, but the focus is on supporting people as adults. It's for people aged 16 and over. Shared Lives used to be called adult placement. It was seen as a move away from people with learning disabilities living in institutions. Shared Lives isn't a 9-to-5 job, it's a way of life, and Shared Lives carers provide really holistic support. At Shared Lives Plus, part of what we do is help to develop the Shared Lives model for new groups of people, and that's included young people and care leavers, survivors of abuse, older people, people with mental ill health, people coming home from hospital, and more recently, for parents with learning disabilities. Shared Lives is always evolving and adapting. Thinking about the rights and realities of parents with learning disabilities. Currently, around half of all parents with a learning disability have their children removed. Whilst policy tells us that parents should be given support so that removing a child is the last resort, we know that often the right support isn't available for parents with learning disabilities. This part of The Promise is really at the heart of this project, and it echoes our ambitions at Shared Lives Plus, that where children are safe in their families and feel loved, they must stay, and families must be given support together to nurture that love and overcome the difficulties which get in the way. Here's a short animation that gives a bit of a snapshot into what a supported parenting
Being a
arrangement
parent is one
looks
of the
like.
most exciting things you can do, but also one of the scariest, especially if social services become involved. Suddenly, there are lots of people you don't know talking about you and your child and what's going to happen to you. Sometimes they might even suggest that your child is taken away and put into care. But you have the same right to raise a family as everyone else. What if there was a way that you could get all the support you need and stay in charge of raising your child? In Shared Lives, you move in with someone who's there to help you every step of the way on the journey to being a parent. Whether it's help with getting that bedtime routine just right, tackling all the paperwork and working with many services, or just reminding you that you're doing a brilliant job, your Shared Lives carer is on your side, always. They are there to guide and support you, not control you. You're in charge of looking after your child, and they are there to support you. Together, you'll embark on the greatest journey of your life, through the good times and the bad. You'll become the best parent you can be. To find out if you could get support from a Shared Lives carer, ask your social worker.
The key to Shared Lives parenting arrangements is that they provide supported parenting, not substituted parenting. So mum or dad holds parental responsibility for their child, and that's an important legal part of the role of Shared Lives. So the role of the Shared Lives carer is to support the parent so that the parent can support the child. And that's a crucial difference in how Shared Lives operates compared to a parent and child foster placement. As part of the Promise Spotlight session, we felt it would be helpful to highlight a few key areas that we've learnt about and worked on specifically throughout the project. There's a lot to consider when balancing the rights of parents and children. This surreal moment in time, with the UNCRC being incorporated into Scottish law, this will legally protect children's rights and puts a duty on authorities to respect children's rights in their decisions and actions. There's a raft of other legislations that supports the right to family life. Under the Human Rights Act, everyone has a right to marry and have children, get support for your right to private and family life, and to be involved in decisions and important meetings about your child. The Equality Act requires public authorities to promote equality of opportunity for disabled people. Where a parent has a learning disability, legislation places a duty on local authorities to assess their needs and, where eligible, provide services. In Scotland, we look to the duty local councils have under the Social Work Act. Similarly, the Children and Young People's Act places a duty on local areas to provide supported parenting where a child is at risk of being removed from their parents' care. Often the first question that we get asked is about who pays for a parenting arrangement. There's information in the guidance that goes into greater detail, but I wanted to highlight that there is no one way for parenting arrangements to get funded. Each arrangement is different. Some are entirely funded by children's social care, some by adult social care, but most are split between children's and adults teams. The Shared Lives scheme sets the overall cost, but decisions around splitting those costs sit with the professionals working with families and not with the Shared Lives team. One Shared Lives scheme kindly provided us with information about how their current parenting arrangements are funded, and this is just one example here. As part of this project, we've connected with parents living in shared lives in Scotland. But this is a photo of Abby, who lives in England in shared lives with her daughter Isabella. We recruited Abby to work on this project with us and help us understand what life is like living as a parent in shared lives. Here's some of the things that Abby said was important to her in the support that she received. First of all, establishing routines and maintaining them. She talked about her Shared Lives carer helping her to learn how to hold and how to bathe Isabella. She spoke a lot about how to move from one stage to the next and having to keep up with children's development. For example, you might just get the hang of bottle feeding and then it's time for weaning. You might know exactly what you're doing with nappies, but then it's time for potty training. So Abby's Shared Lives carer Mel has helped her to move on from one stage to the next. Abby's spoken a lot about staying healthy and eating the right foods, keeping moving, and generally feeling like her health is in a much better place since she moved in with Mel. Abby said that she's more confident and she's getting involved a lot more in the community. She's also had help from Mel, attending appointments and speaking to professionals, and a lot of the parents have fed back that that's been one of the most helpful things, is understanding the language and the jargon that can be used in health and social care services. Shared Lives is a really well-established service that's regulated through the Care Inspectorate. So there's a lot of measures put in place to manage risk. These are outlined in our parenting guidance, but also in the guidance around Shared Lives as a whole. For this project, we produced 4 pieces of guidance. First of all, we produced the guidance for Shared Lives schemes, and that's a how-to guide that reflects best practice of working in this area. And it also sets out the learning that we've achieved through this project about how to deliver consistently good practice across the board when delivering arrangements. We've also created an easy read guide for parents so that they understand the nature of a Shared Lives arrangement and how it's going to work for them and their family. And this can help parents decide whether or not shared lives is for them. We've created guidance for professionals, anybody working in the health and social care sector or supporting parents, and this should set out an overview of what shared lives is and how we can support parents, the different services that we can link parents with, how arrangements are financed, what the policy context is in Scotland, and how we operate within that. There's also a separate guidance which was created by the Scottish Child Law Centre for us, which gives a legal overview of how shared lives operates and can guide professionals both within the shared lives sector and within the wider health and social care sector to make sure that shared lives is the right option for people at the right time. There's other guidance which we have looked to throughout this project, and that includes supported parenting, the guidance from SCLD, and guidance from the Working Together for Parents network. In terms of the learning from this project, I think we've learned most from families who are living in shared lives. Parents have forged strong attachments with their children, and all the parents have fed back that they feel more confident in their parenting skills, and they've said they feel more positive about themselves. What we've seen is this positive role modelling of family life, and that practical support from shared lives carers has given people an everyday, very ordinary, very organic type of support that many of us take for granted when we become a parent. And it's that very ordinary support that's felt really central to helping parents throughout the different stages of their child's development. As things change for baby, the support and advice evolves too. As well as this, families have accessed other services and programmes, including advocacy, parenting programmes, health services, and housing and benefit support. We think the main challenges for parents in shared lives has been the ongoing scrutiny from social care and the sense of fear that brings with it. Whilst that scrutiny and that oversight is necessary, one of the mums in the programme had reported that having had her first child removed, this fear stayed with her throughout parenting her second child, even when things were going well. She said the level of service involvement, even within shared lives, was high, especially in the early days, and that interrupted that sense of ordinary family life. Secondly, liaising with housing services has been challenging at times. Overwhelmingly, we found services collaborative, but housing has felt like it has more restrictions and less flexibility. We've seen one mum in particular struggle with moving on from shared lives because she was in an out-of-area arrangement. And we've questioned whether the success of this shared lives arrangement and being discharged from child protection has actually reduced the mum's priority for housing. Part of spotlighting projects is looking at the tough bits and what we've had to grow through. It's fair to say that we've been able to take our lead from the Promise and from other projects working within the Promise. We've been invited to really open up and recognise when we don't do justice to the communities we support. This has been a short-term project that's quite ambitious, and there's a temptation for us to kind of keep things on track rather than rebuild the track. But working within the context of the Promise has helped us to break with that fear and look through the lens of families that have been let down, because that's the point of all this work, is that it doesn't happen again. So some examples of how we've done this. We renamed our project right at the start, acknowledging the importance of the supported parenting approach over substituted parenting. So we named the project the Supported Parenting Project. Typically, development projects within shared lives would involve a steering group to inform our work. However, The membership of this steering group has been significantly broader, and we started to see connecting with the wider workforce as more of a key activity, so we allowed more time and resource to nurture those relationships. Projects typically develop guidance for shared life schemes to give them an oversight of best practice and how to deliver arrangements for new communities. But our steering group challenged this and said that it would be helpful to provide an equivalent for the wider workforce. Highlighting that gap in our approach was really useful, and so we were able to produce an equivalent guide for professionals outside of shared lives. Parents within the steering group also raised that quite often in-depth information was made available for the workforce and the services that exist to support them, but not for parents themselves. This feedback was really important to us, and it enabled us to co-produce the Easy Read guidance specifically for parents or parents-to-be who are considering shared lives. And we would always look to do this now for any future projects. How we talk about families and people with experience of care has changed. As an organisation that supports the learning disability community, we often think about the social model and the language that we use, but this isn't necessarily inclusive of care experienced people. We're still at the beginning of this journey, and I hope that we can learn more about this as we move on, but it's been incredibly helpful working with the Promise and each and every child to look at how we can represent our communities better. In a nutshell, what we've learned is that it's up to all of us to know better and do better, to put our hands up when we get things wrong and ask for feedback when we're stuck. This project has shown me personally that doing that always makes things better. It's never going to make things worse, and actually it allows other people to do the same. It's been a real privilege working alongside the Promise, other organisations that have supported us, and especially parents themselves who've given so much time and commitment to this project. Whilst I won't be working on this project anymore, we still want to make sure that this important work continues. If you've got any questions or want to discuss how supported parenting could work in Scotland, please get in touch with our development manager, Ben Hall, whose details are here. Thanks for listening.